So I went and saw Candyman last night, and it was everything I wanted it to be and more. So I want to get to this review, and I'm going to try my best not to spoil anything for you. And it should be pretty easy because some of the topics I'm going to talk about in this review don't really have to go too much into detail. Because luckily with Candyman, because there was a movie that's already come out, the first one from 1992, this one does a really good job of working off the first one and expanding the story. And so, yeah, let's just get into it. So, first up, before you watch, I highly recommend watching the original 1992 Candyman. I think for you to really get the full message of this movie, to understand what's going on with this movie, to kind of really immerse yourself into the lore of the movie, you need to watch the first one. Now, that's not to say that you can't not watch the first one and watch this one and still be okay. You can. You cannot watch the 1992 version of Candyman and watch this one and still be okay. They do a decent job of explaining Candyman, what happened in the first one, and then, setting up the stuff with what happens with this one. I think for you to get the full scope of what's going on and have a better appreciation for the movie, you'll do yourself a favor and watch the first Candyman. So Candyman, I want to talk about him as far as who is he or what is he? So just like in the first Candyman, again, that's why I say you need to watch the movie, he not only is a horror villain that you're very fearful of and obviously don't want to get killed by, but he's much more than just a person. He's aside from being like an urban legend, he is a representation of oppression. That's the easiest way I can kind of relate it to. And it's an oppression that happens throughout history. And so I kind of get it as more as it's a bottled up anger of oppression, and because the way the original Candyman dies and how it's repeated throughout history, it's it's obviously Candyman's African American, so it happens in Cabrini Green, which is the projects. So it's the cultural oppression of the people that live in Cabrini Green, but it's also the same oppression that's happened to African Americans throughout history. And I feel like Candyman is like a representation of that, the anger, the horror, the gore, the violence. It's all that kind of stuff. And so Candyman not only is just a person, he's also an icon, I guess you could say, and a representation of that. So this is labeled as a spiritual sequel. Now, I get it could be that way, but I think this movie does a really good job of actually being a true sequel to the first Candyman movie. It does a very good job of building upon the movie, giving it depth, expanding the lore, and really giving the characters some type of depth that really connects to the first one. So I think it's more than just a spiritual sequel. That's what IMDb and I think some of the descriptions call this movie, but it's more of like a true sequel to the first one in my opinion. So let's talk about the horror element. So you definitely get an upgrade as far as gore in this movie. Now, I know there are other sequels to Candyman, but those don't have anything to do with this movie. So, those are more just like 90s B movies that they were trying to just kind of capitalize on Candyman's popularity at the time. But as far as sticking to the first one to this one, you get a really big upgrade as far as gore, as far as the effects of the gore, how people are killed. They do a lot with mirrors and reflections. And it's very interesting how people die. I mean, you're just like, there's some scenes where people die, you're just like, wow, you're just kind of like taken aback and like, oh snap, they did that. So you have that, and then there's also more of like the mental kind of messing with your mind element, because again, Candyman is an urban legend, and you don't know if you can take him seriously. Is he real? Is he not real? It's always messing with your mind. And so the movie does a really good job of kind of, again, picking up on the first one as far as using the elements that make you question if Candyman is real. They use those on top of the gore together, and that's what makes it a really good horror movie in my opinion. So social commentary. So not only is this, like I said before, Candyman is the very first one, and including this one, is a social commentary on the projects and the oppression African Americans have to go through as far as, interaction with cops, specifically white cops, and just being beat down, and the gentrification is what this movie is talking about as far as the original projects being turned into, more newer developments for, as they say, rich white folks to come and move in and enjoy the area while kicking everybody out. It keeps from the first one in that same aspect. Now, this is turned up just a little bit because it is produced by Jordan Peele, And Nia DeCosta does a really good job of, I think, maneuvering through those situations in the movie where obviously you have heightened white experiences versus black. And as a white person, I'm not going to go into too much detail because while they can seem cliche in some cases, they are valid. Those things do happen on a daily basis. It is sad to see, but it's nothing that they haven't talked about before. And I think in the recent stuff with Black Lives Matter and all that has happened with Breonna Taylor, it speaks to home of what's been going on lately. So there's a lot of social commentary on there that doesn't necessarily take away from the movie. It adds to the movie definitely. And I think, again, with the lore of Candyman and what he is as an icon and what he represents, it just makes sense that it's there. So I want to talk real quick about the actors. So Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Tiana Paris, they do a really good job as far as Anthony and Brianna. If you're not familiar with the actress who played Brianna, I know her from Monica Rambeau from WandaVision, but she's excellent. Yahya Abdul-Mateen, he just does a really good job. I was kind of, Tony Todd is Candyman, and so having a character go through this kind of evolution and deal with the madness and fearfulness of Candyman, much like Virginia Madsen did in the first one, you think, how are they going to handle that? But he does a really good job. He's an artist, and the way they kind of incorporated his skills into bringing Candyman to life, I thought was a really good storyline. And I just enjoy the actors overall, even the secondary characters as far as Brianna's brother and his fiance, I think, and even like the various art curators and artists that Brianna works with and deals with. They are always, to me, they're very cliche as far as, how they see the world and stuff like that. But they're just kind of added to the movie. And in some cases, you're like, these people need to die. They need to, go and kill them. Kill them, Candyman, kill them. So it was just kind of cool to see some of those characters, and I think it worked overall. So one thing I'll give this movie kudos on is runtime. It was only 90 minutes, an hour and 31 minutes, I believe. And it didn't feel long at all to me, and it didn't feel rushed. Like when the movie ended, I feel like we got a complete story, and I feel like it told the story it needed to tell, and it was very effective in how it told it. Now, leading up to the next topic, the sequel. Does this movie need a sequel? It could have a sequel. If Candyman's really popular, they could continue the story, but do they need to? I don't know if they need to. I think we're good. I think we got the very first one. We got this one. They kind of go together in parallels just from 92 to 2021. So I think we're good as far as Candyman goes. I think this movie was very effective as far as the horror goes, as far as the message it was trying to tell, as far as social commentary. I think we're good. So if I had to give a rating to Candyman, I would honestly give it 4.5 out of 5 bees, honeybees. If I had to just not give it that 0.5, because I honestly do think it's a really good horror movie, and I think it's probably the best horror movie we've had this year, and probably in a good while. I think the only thing I would say is, just like Get Out and Us, I know this is produced by Jordan Peele. There are some times where, I know I said before, the social commentary doesn't really take you out of the movie, but there are some times where social commentary is kind of over the top, just a little bit. So I think if they just maybe weren't so over the head in some of the instances, I'm not saying they're not true or not valid, but I think if they don't necessarily just throw it in there all the time, just to kind of for the sake of a message and, make it more true. And you'll see the part of the movie where I'm kind of talking about that. You'll see it and kind of go, this is kind of thrown in. I think that's probably the only gripe about the movie, but it doesn't really take me out of the movie at all. I see the appreciation for this movie. I think it's an awesome movie. I think Nia DeCosta did a really good job, and I enjoyed it overall. So yeah, that's my review for Candyman. Let me know if you agree with my review. If you've seen the movie, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with some of the things I talked about? Love to hear your thoughts down below. That's it for this video, guys. Make sure to hit that like button. Just like this one, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time on the Mashup.